Today, I'm going to be showing you how I make the hands. In my last tutorial video, I mentioned how the concept behind making a 3D paper cube was the foundation for a lot of what I do today. In this video, you will see how. First, you need a wrist joint. This is exactly the same as what I showed in my previous video, except with a much thinner and longer lever here, and also being very, very tiny since it's just in the wrist. Here, I'm going to make the palm, and this is where the 3D paper cube comes in. See, as you may or may not know, to make a 3D paper cube, you just need 6 squares attached to each other in a certain way, so that when you cut them out and fold them together, each of them forms the 6 sides of the 3-dimensional cube. And it doesn't even really matter how you lay out the individual squares of the cube as they are flat, as long as they are all connected and you have a top, a bottom, a front, a back, and then one square on either side. Doesn't matter if one's down here or one's up there. Either way, when you cut it out, they're going to be able to fold into a cube. The palm and knuckle section of the hand is just like the cube, but even easier. You just have the top, both sides, and the bottom. So it will just fold around like this, and then the finger joints, the fingers will go in here, while the wrist will go in the back, forming a hand. So a really simple shape. Now you'll want to draw in the details of the hand here too, like the knuckles up here and the palm on the underside. This is going to be Mr. Kenshiro's right hand, so it will face this way with the palm going on the bottom, and that means we are now going to have to glue the pin of the wrist joint to the side of the palm here. Now, since the hand is going to be virtually weightless, you really don't need much glue or a very strong wrist joint for it to support its own weight. And so now we'll have to wait for that to dry, and you can see it will fold around like this and connect on the other side with this wrapping around here. Step 2 is going to be making the finger joints, and to start off with, we need to make the pin that the finger joints are going to slide over. So like that. As I'm hoping you're beginning to notice, all the points of articulation are functioning in the exact same way, where it's just one cylinder of paper rotating around another. And the fingers are no different. So like every other joint, the fingers will have a pin, a pivot, and a lever. However, where the fingers differ from other joints is they actually use the same pin as the other finger joints. Now that the finger joints are done, we can glue their pin to the hand. You only want to glue the one side first though, as we're still going to need to slide the complete fingers on before closing everything up. Alright, so moving on to the fingers, this is what they look like laying flat. We just have the right side, the left side, this part will be the top, and then once you cut it out, this long strip of paper here will actually wrap around and then connect to the bottom of the finger as well, and then the joint will just slide right into there. You can see how it's pretty much just like the cube analogy, where, that's a terrible cube, where we just have the bottom, front, top, back, and then either side, and then that just folds around to make the 3-dimensional shape. Once it's been cut out and the color and details have been added, we have to go through the very painful, finicky process of folding these fingers together and taping it properly so it doesn't come undone. And we are done. These are the 2 little fingers. And slot the tiny little finger joint into the fingers, where it can now, with the aid of the double-sided tape, wrap around here and cut off the excess paper. I normally make this top section too long just in case, so I don't have to bother calculating how long it needs to be precisely, and then cut off any excess at the end. And that is it. That is how you make fingers. And the final step is to do that as many times as you want, and then they will be sliding onto the knuckles. And once the glue is dried on the other side, you can cut out a little space here so the fingers can bend down through there, and this part will just wrap around like this. And that is pretty much how you would make an open hand with some finger articulation. since the hand is so small here, there's really no room to put in any kind of joint or articulation for the thumb to move. So I've just made the thumb exactly the same way as all the other fingers, and I'm literally just going to glue it onto the hand. And that's it. So this hand here is for Kenshiro, and you may have noticed that I made the pinky and ring finger as one piece. This is because I didn't feel it would have enough room to put in the fourth finger joint without bloating the hand and making it too big. And I don't think being able to separate the pinky and ring finger is even necessary. The 3-finger split is plenty to get a wide range of poses, including web shooting poses in the case of Spider-Man, which, as you can see, I just made the pinky and the index finger as separate joints, with the 2 middle fingers being attached to each other. So articulate the fingers as necessary for the character. You could even do all the fingers as a single piece, as I've done with Superman, which just has the hinging movement at the knuckles. Think about the character you want to make and what kind of poses you want them to do when deciding how to split the fingers. And also consider how much effort you're willing to put in, because the hands being so relatively small makes them quite difficult and time consuming to do too many points of articulation for. Now, if you're like me and you can't always be bothered going through the process of making an articulated hand with each individual finger moving, or at least several of them, and you just want to make something much easier and more simple, you can. So the fist, when folded flat, is basically like the cube too. However, the back will fold around the soft curve of the palm and finish on the bottom of the hand, where it will meet the tips of the fingers. Like before, we have the 2 sides of the hand that are drawn to look like a fist from the side view that will fold down and meet with the piece of paper folding around. And that's what you would always do when using a method like this to get a 3D shape. You just draw it exactly as it would look from the side view and leave the top as a long piece of paper that will fold around either side and bend and curve as necessary to form the desired shape. So at least from the side view, it would look exactly like what you want it to. It would just be a little bit boxy when you get some more dynamic angles. And finally, as you've probably noticed, there is a third side, and this is the thumb. This will fold over the side already there that indicates the index finger and wrap around to the bottom of the hand. And this is to really help shape the fist, with the index finger tucking into the thumb just like a fist would look. I actually only just came up with this idea the other day, and I'm really satisfied with how it looks. It's so simple and yet so effective. And of course, either side of the fist will be glued on the inside to the pin of your wrist joint, so you can get a little bit of movement if you want. If you have a character like, say, the Armored Titan that is significantly larger and has room in his hands for some extra movement, you could do that too. It is made mostly the same way, except at the knuckles there is a joint for each of the 4 fingers, since you now have room to do so, and each finger itself also has another joint about halfway down, allowing for another bend in the middle of the finger. And this is achieved by adding a pin to just a piece of card like this that will eventually fold around to create a boxy shape that will be the upper part of the finger. And around that pin, you would just slide the second part of the finger, which is made exactly like I just showed you earlier. And so then this part would wrap around there, glue to the pin, and then you would get a finger that can bend at the knuckle. And then this little gap here in the back of the card is where the lever of your finger joint will be glued into before this wraps around and connects here, forming your finger with now 2 points of articulation. A bend halfway down the finger there, and then another bend, of course, at the knuckle where it attaches to the hand. And the thumb is just a pin glued to a piece of card on either side that will sit and probably be glued inside the palm of the hand, where again, there is now room since the hand is so much bigger. You might have to trim down the wrist joint a little bit here to make room for that thumb, however. And a pivot is wrapped around that pin that is attached to a piece of card that will extend out and be glued to another pin that the actual thumb will be stuck onto. So once you've made your thumb exactly the way as I've made all the other fingers, that would just slide onto the pin here, with this piece of card then being glued around the top. Now your thumb can rotate down here at the hand and then of course extend out at this joint here. The hands are difficult. They are such small parts of the human body that do so much. I've been making hands this way with varying success for years, and as you can see, they weren't as good as they are now when I started. The first time I tried making a hand, it was very blocky and way too big. I wasn't as good at drawing back then either. This one is from 3 years ago. However, with time and practice, I got better, and repeatedly trying and making many mistakes is what enabled me to make what I can today. Hopefully you got all that, and I've provided enough insight into my methods for making articulated hands. And as usual, I have omitted anything too specific because I want these tutorials to inspire, not instruct. So decide for yourself how big the hands should be and how many fingers, if any, can move in what shape they are. And if you have better ideas of how they can be done, go for it. Just use my ideas as something to build on, a template if anything. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.